Hi everyone, from me, Brent Graham of Goodforthegame, and something a little bit different today. We're going to be doing a book review, very well timed, I can tell you, ahead of Christmas as well. An absolute must-read, as it says there on the thumbnail for Springbok fans. It's called The Fireside Springbok, written by Mike Greenaway, and I'm going to introduce Mike right now. Mike, great to have you on the show. You're currently sitting in Durban in some foul weather, I believe.
Absolutely pouring with rain. I'd like to be beside a fireside with my book right now. It's actually quite chilly.
Excellent. Well, I first got word of this book, and you and I have met before, and through our good mutual friend, the Oracle, Gavin Cohen, as well. But first got sort of word of this book, I think, on one of the WhatsApp groups the other day, and I thought, I've got to get hold of it first of all and have a read. And I must tell you that I've got my copy here, and I have started reading it, and some fascinating stories. And then I thought, let's talk to you about it as well, because it really is a fascinating. But also these days, books, newspapers, books, and that they're not being read the way they used to necessarily, and probably quite a lot to talk about in that side as well. So I'm going to bring up a couple of slides here as we chat, Mike. I'll just bring that down like that. So maybe start us off by saying how did the idea start, and how did you take it forward?
Yeah, so COVID lockdown, obviously we had time on our hands, and it actually coincided with my 25th anniversary of covering Springbok rugby. And I thought, well, I've got so many memories of my own of touring with the Boks, I should put it in some kind of commemorative form. So I started going through all my cuttings of like 25 years of covering the Boks, and I had some quite nice stories, but I also found that a lot of them had been overtaken or weren't as good as I thought. And I just thought, jeepers, I've got so much time. I've got so many rugby books. And I sat down and I began reading about the Springbok history. I started with books from the 1890s. I read like over 30 books. Then when COVID lifted, I started touring museums around the country. I visited collectors, photographed old programs. So it took me about a year, and then I had basically the skeleton of the book. And then I took another year to complete it. And what I did was, to gain entry into the book, it had to be an interesting story. So it's not like a Hall of Fame or a concise encyclopedic history of Springbok rugby, because frankly, that would be quite boring. But it is in a kind of order going from 1890 to 2023. The last story is Siya Kolisi, but it starts in the 1890s, and it goes, every decade is reflected. And like I say, it's got to be an interesting story. It's got to be something that you read and you think, jeepers, I didn't know that, and I'm so glad I read that. So that's in essence how it came about.
I just want to point out as well, this is, you were saying it weighs about 1.5 kilograms, and we'll have a look at some of the pages now. It's what you describe as a sort of a coffee table book, but it's more than that as well, because quite often the coffee table books are purely almost pictures with a few captions. This has got a lot of writing, a lot of detailed stories as well. It's ideal for a quick read. Read one or two stories. You can pick it up next week. You can pick it up in 2 weeks' time. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, if you read the foreword by Nick Mallett, Nick Mallett absolutely loved the book. I approached him to write a foreword. He and I go back quite a long way from when he was coaching the Boks in '98. And he said, okay, Greenaway, I'll do your foreword, but I'm going to read every single bloody word. And he did. And he wrote a very cool foreword. And what he recommends there, he says, it's bite-sized chapters. So you can pick up the book. You can have it in your bathroom if you like. Pick it up, read a chapter. It'll take you 10 minutes or so. Put it down, go off, come back, pick it up again. And it's a new story. So it's not like you have to, you're reading a novel and you've got to keep your place and you've got to make sure you remember what happened before. So each chapter is a story on its own.
Right. Well, just to tell people, we're going to be giving away a copy of the Fireside Springbok, and that is going to be on our final handicap, our live betting show on Thursday night, 9 o'clock. There's a link in the description box below. Go and set that. We're going to give it away. It'll be done by a random lucky draw for someone who's watching in the live chat there on Thursday night. I can tell you it's an absolutely excellent prize. Let's move on then. Mike, just having a look here at a couple of pictures. I really enjoyed that one of Bucky's with all the kids pushing against him, and you could see he enjoyed it as well. But let's get into the first story I want to touch on today. I haven't read this one yet, so I'll rely on you to take me through. But Frick de Preer, player of the century. I mean, even people who, like me, who never watched Frick play live, I mean, we all know Frick de Preer. Tell us a bit about this one.
Yeah, so the book covers the amateur era, obviously, and the professional era. It goes from, like I keep saying, 1890 to 2023. So it covers all eras. And if the amateur era was to be summed up by one great individual, it would be old Oom Frick. I mean, voted as the best Springbok of the 20th century. And he just encapsulated everything that was great about rugby when those weren't paid. He is one of our greatest ever Springboks just in terms of playing ability, but it was also how he approached the game. I mean, he has one of the longest Springbok careers ever, including professional guys. He played until I think he was well into his 30s, mid-30s. He was playing for the Boks. And he said the reason why he had his longevity is because he loved his beer, he loved his cigarettes, he didn't dig pasta and all the other cut that the modern guys and salads and all that. He famously devoured about some ridiculously large steak for lunch before playing for Northern Transvaal in a game with his favorite chips. I'm not quite sure if he washed it down with a castle, but you never know. But he went and he played a game of a rugby, which goes down there. You see in the bottom there, you see, this is a lock forward. This is how good this guy is. He kicked a drop goal, he kicked a penalty, and he also scored a fantastic try. I mean, imagine a lock doing that. But he was incredibly skillful, very, very fast man. And just a fantastic character, and still going strong. I believe he is still alive. He's approaching 90, but he's really good. And I just want to touch on one little anecdote. If I'm just going to go to my phone here, where I've got, he talks about, this is just only a year or two ago. He says that a lot of guys from his era were called in to some celebratory dinner thing, and the current Springbok guys explained the modern game to them. It was a little bit patronizing. And there was a Frick and a few of his old teammates there. And I quote what he says: "A bunch of us former Springboks were shown a video, and it was explained to us what angles the modern Boks were running on the field. Louis Moolman leaned over and asked me, 'Frick, what lines did we run in our day?' I said, 'Pal, we knew only one line, the try line. That was the line we ran for.'" Beautiful stuff.
Brilliant. And Louis Moolman, I think he is late, Louis Moolman, if I remember correctly. But I mean, he was an absolute monster of a lock forward as well. There was some great players from from those sort of days. Right, let's move on to the next one then. So that's Frick de Preer, of course, and I can tell you it's going to take you a long time to read this whole book. There are so many. This one I really enjoyed. I did have a read of this one. Andy MacDonald, the Lion Slayer. Tell us about this one, Mike.
Yeah, look, imagine playing against a Springbok prop that literally killed a lion with his bare hands. 1965, Andy MacDonald was propped for South Africa, a tour of New Zealand and a few other games. So what happened with him? He was actually from then Rhodesia. He was a farmer, and he was losing livestock to a lion. Went out to search for it, and the lion found him. Cut the story fairly short. He had this thing that he remembered reading in a magazine or a book about hunting, that the best way to kill if you're attacked by a wild animal, the best way to defuse it and try to kill it is to shove its tongue down its throat, which is
easier said than done, I imagine.
But he did that. He managed that. He was fighting for his life, and he just remembered having read that somewhere. Amazing what your brain pulls up when you're fighting for your life. And he shoved the tongue down the lion's throat and suffocated it. It died. And on the picture down on the bottom left, it's a bit, so you can just see it. His son is sitting on this massive lion. So I mean, there's stories like that are just flipping amazing folklore. But it's such a sad story that, like I say, He was a Rhodesian guy. Then they went through the whole change to Zimbabwe, and the farm possessions started taking place as those dissidents came. And they took his farm, but they didn't just take it. They shot him and his wife, just gunned him down. And it was the end of the Lion Slayer. What a sad end to a fantastically strong man.
That's it. And I mean, I think the beauty of this book that you've also put together is, first of all, very few people are going to know these stories. I mean, just a very quick example. I met a friend for coffee yesterday, and I was telling him about the very first Springbok captain to win a game, and he threw some facts at me. I was very impressed. He said, "Oh yeah, they used the bishop's colours and this and that." So I thought, oh well, he knows the story. And then I was telling him about that guy, and no, but actually he escaped to Argentina because he'd embezzled money, and then he came back after the guy was dead, and he didn't know that at all. So there's going to be so much in this book, even if you think you know your rugby, there's a tremendous amount that you're not going to have heard before.
Yeah, for sure. No, it's that guy. In fact, Ferry Heatley was his name. He captained the Boks when they won their first ever match. They called them the British Isles back at that era. It was funny. The first half of the 1890s, the British Isles came to basically to teach the colonials how to play rugby, and then they obviously taught the South Africans too well, because once they started winning, they never lost a home game for something like 60 years. It was an incredible run. But anyway, the captain was
8 or something. Yeah,
that's right. France beat them in 1958 in Springs of all place, but. Very Heatley, we think that pyramid schemes are a modern invention, but they've been going for a lot longer than people realize. And old Ferry, or Barry was his real name, was ironically named Ferry because he was certainly no fairy. He was a massive man. He got his teammates to invest in one of these Ponzi schemes, and then it went south, and the creditors were closing in, and he did a midnight flit out of Cape Town, got into a rowing boat and paddled out to a ship bound for Buenos Aires. Stowed away, went to Buenos Aires, got into sugarcane farming there, made a fortune. To his enormous credit, sent money back to South Africa to pay off his teammates, his creditors. And then once he paid everyone off, he came back to South Africa, and he got into rugby. He assisted coaching the Springboks. He was a selector at one stage, and then met quite an unfortunate end. While he was away in South America, Cape Town had got cars. It was become quite sort of mechanized, if you like. And he was in a pub in Long Street. Apparently, came out, maybe had a few jars too many, wasn't looking where he was going, and just got taken out by a car. But
unbelievable. But moving then, I mean, you obviously go all the way back here, but I mean, you've got a lot of stuff in the modern era as well. And here's something on Peter Stef. Now, I haven't read this one yet, but you talk about Peter Stef's fighting genes.
Yeah, so obviously a lot of the Afrikaans players with the French sounding surnames. I think quite a few people will know that there was the French Huguenots who came over from France to avoid religious persecution from the early, I think, mid 18th century, 1700s, something like that. I'm probably wrong here, but the first Peter Stef du Toit. And this is really interesting because there's something like 9 generations of Peter Stef du Toit. The first one in 1780 or something was the bare knuckle boxing champion of the Western Cape. So this fighting, I mean, he was a farmer and he used to journey from village to village and for money box against the local boxing champ. And the tradition from this guy onwards was that the eldest son would always be called Peter Stef du Toit. Peter's Stephanus and some middle names, I think. But anyway, Peter Stephanus du Toit. So that guy was Peter Stephanus du Toit the first, and then it goes the second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth. Peter Stef is the seventh, and his son was born about a year or two ago, and is Peter Stef the eighth. But now, one going two back from Peter Stef. You see the guy on the tractor there, that is Piet Spira du Toit, who was a prop in the 1960s for the Boks. Also Peter Stefanus du Toit. There he is on the left, up at the top there. You see Peter Stef on the right. You see the guy on the black and white pic. That's Peter Stef's grandfather. And was a Springbok prop. So these fighting genes have come through the centuries. Then you see that picture there of Peter Stef with the gentleman in a wheelchair, and people might know the story. It's not that long ago. It happened. That's Peter, the current Peter Stef's father. Also, obviously, Peter Stefanus.
Peter Stef the sixth.
Yes, he didn't play meaningful rugby. I think he played club rugby. But anyway, so Peter Stef had these calamitous injuries. I think people know some really horrific knee injuries. Also that hematoma thing where he almost lost his leg. But it was one of his knee injuries. The surgeon said, "Look, it's tickets. It's finished. We can't fix it. There's no ligaments left. There's nothing we can do. It's over, bro." But his father had heard about a procedure in the States where a family member, preferably a direct family member, can donate a part of the body to fix someone else's injury. And so Peter Stef's father donated a piece of his hamstring to patch up his son's knee. And I mean, what a story! There's Peter Stef, man of the match in the World Cup final, with part of his father's hamstring keeping his knee together. I mean,
that is unbelievable. I mean, thank goodness for his dad. I mean, geez, because that performance in the final by Peter Stef du Toit, I want to put it there. There's never been a better performance. I'm not saying there hasn't been a performance of equal value, but I've never seen a better performance than what Peter Stef delivered in that Rugby World Cup final.
Can you imagine the pride his father had watching? I don't know if he went over there or watching on TV, knowing that he helped his son save his career. I mean, and then look how he paid it back. I mean, that's just one of the greatest stories. Yeah.
No, absolutely unbelievable. Well, really looking forward to getting through this. I can tell you, I don't know what it is. When I was younger, I could sit and read a book for hours on end. I now read a couple of stories and then I close my eyes. But absolutely love the book. Like I said, we're going to give one away on the show. We're going to give another one away probably on the Good for the Game forum or something like that. I have ordered it. They're currently sitting. This is obviously my copy I've got here, but they are currently sitting with Mike because we want to see where in the country you are first. Unfortunately, Mike, I think getting these books, unfortunately, offshores would be a bit of a challenge. Your best bet is to get someone who's coming over to visit you to bring the book with you. Exactly.
Yes, it's quite a weighty book. It's a proper book. It's 256 pages, so it's quite heavy. And that's great for if you're an owner of one, because you're going to wade through it and not wade through it. You're going to race through it. It's a fantastic read. But the 1.25 kgs, so it's quite heavy to courier. Yeah. So get a mate to take one for you.
Excellent. And obviously, as far as availability goes, I know you be up in Joburg last week driving along and just making sure the boys at the bookshops were putting them up on display. But leading bookshops like Exclusive Books and that, I guess that's where you're going to get it?
Yeah, they're very much in Exclusives and a few others, but mostly Exclusive Books is where you'll find it. If there are people watching who want signed copies, by all means, you can get hold of me on Facebook. Just direct message me or get hold of Brent.
They're welcome to email me as well, Mike. Brent at Goodforthegame. 100%. No, they're welcome. I'll put the guys in touch. In fact, that friend that I spoke to, he's already said his wife is getting that book for him for Christmas. But he did ask if he could get a signed copy. So I said they would be able to. So that's great. And talking. So retail price at the shops there at the Exclusive Books is $6.50 now. I haven't bought a book in many years, Mark. I'm not going to lie. So when I heard $6.50, I thought, geez, that's pretty heavy. But when I got the book, I actually said, geez, yeah, this is actually good value. I mean, the amount of effort and just to print this alone must have cost an absolute bomb. So, yeah, certainly, in my opinion, if you've got a friend or a family member who loves their rugby, particularly South African, then this is an absolutely great book for them for Christmas.
Yeah, I think the thing with it is when you actually get it in your hands and you see what a meaty, proper book. It's not one of these little novel size sort of paperback things that you skim through. There's some serious research in there and some magnificent pictures. So it's just something that you buy or you get as a gift. I would say mostly it's a great gift, and you keep for life. You have that on your coffee table for forever.
Well, if you did enjoy the show and you do like in particular, if you like your rugby and your rugby betting, then hit the subscribe button and also hit the like button. It does help our channel a lot. Mark, it's been an absolute pleasure chatting to you. I can't wait to get stuck into the rest of the book. And I know it's going to be a big success. I mean, how are you feeling about the book at this stage? Because you took a bit of a punt on this. You were telling me you borrowed money because you had to publish it yourself. So it was a real, let's call it an entrepreneurial stance you took. And I'm sure at the start you must have been a bit nervous, like, the book's there, but, how is anybody going to read it?
Yeah, you know what happened there, Brent? Like I said, I started this in lockdown, and you know how nervous people were in all industries, and particularly the publishing industry. And I contacted some of the established publishers, and I said, "This is my idea. And they all kind of said, "Oh, yeah, sounds good, but not for us." No one wanted to dip their toes in the water at that point. So eventually, I just thought, "Jeepers, I've done all this research, and I know I'm sitting on a fantastic book here. So I'm going to do it myself." And went to the bank manager, and I sold him the concept. He said, "Okay, how much do you need?" And I told him, and he sort of mopped his brow a bit. Then he said, "Yes." But yeah, so now I backed myself. I put my money on green. So. It's selling really nicely. I tell you one small thing. It's quite funny. My lady who's been supporting me through this. There was a point where I thought, "Jeepers, I'm not sure this is going to happen." And I've got to borrow all this money. And she said, "Remember Andy Capistanio's show? Andy's got that book review show, Super Sport, and you review sports books." He says, "Now she's a bit of a life coach. Her name's Peter." And she said, "Now just imagine Andy Capistanio is holding up your book and he's giving it a good rating. And that is what you've got to visualize." And I put that in my head, and a couple of years later, I'm watching Super Sport. Up comes Andy Capistanio, reviews my book, and he gives it 10 out of 10. So, that visualization moment, when it eventually happened, I must say there was more than a tear in my eye. So it was worth it, yeah.
Excellent. If we could just pause the show while I just visualize winning a rugby bet this weekend. I'm hoping Bulls minus against Sarries or something like that. But Mark, absolute pleasure having you on. Best of luck with the book. I know I've got a few ideas as well that we'll be talking about in the new year as well. Perhaps we could do. You've certainly inspired me. I've had a few book ideas in mind for quite a while. But as I say, best of luck. Thanks for coming on the show, and I'm sure the sales are going to go well.
Thanks, Brent. Always a pleasure to chat.
Excellent. That was Mike Greenaway talking about his book, The Fireside Springbok, The Untold Stories That Make the Boks Great. And let me tell you, it's an absolute must-read. Thanks, everyone, for watching. Yes, subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so yet. And we look forward to seeing you on Thursday night to see who's going to win a live